Hi, I'm your IVF baby Jordan. Thanks so much for joining me to learn about the estrobolome, how the gut microbiome plays a role in regulating estrogen. Today you will learn what is the estrobolome, how do gut bacteria contribute to estrogen regulation, and for our repro relevance, or how does this all affect you or someone you know, we will look into the potential connection between the gut and reproductive endocrine disorders like PCOS and endometriosis. In my previous Hormones and Whole Body Health Substack post, we saw how important reproductive endocrine hormones are to whole body health. Estrogen in particular has receptors throughout the body and plays a role in the cardiovascular system, in the musculoskeletal system, in the central nervous system, and in the GI tract. Well, did you know that the gut microbiome plays a role in estrogen regulation and estrogen's ability to communicate with the entire body? Introducing the estrobolome, which is a combination of two words, estrogen and microbiome. The estrobolome is a specific subset of gut bacteria that produces enzymes that regulate estrogen levels in the body. The estrobolome bacteria produces enzymes like beta-glucuronidase. This enzyme is involved in maintaining the balance of free estrogens in the body. So let's take a quick step back and talk about why this balance is important. There are both free or bound, also known as conjugated forms of estrogen in the bloodstream, and only the biologically active or free form can bind to receptors. So the bound or conjugated form cannot bind to estrogen receptors, but the free form can bind to receptors, which leads to estrogen's downstream effects throughout the body. The enzyme beta-glucuronidase deconjugates and reactivates estrogens in the gut. Here is the basic mechanism of action. These conjugated forms of estrogen are found and seen by this beta-glucuronidase. The beta-glucuronidase then deconjugates the estrogen, leaving the free estrogen available for it to bind to its receptors. So to bring this all back together, the estrobolome produces enzymes like beta-glucuronidase, which deconjugates and reactivates estrogens in the gut, where they can re-enter the bloodstream. And a balanced microbiome regulates the levels of free estrogen. But you can imagine that if this balance is off, it can lead to potential dysregulation of estrogen-driven disorders by increasing or decreasing the circulating levels of free estrogen in the body. Research into the estrobolome is still in its early stages. This term estrobolome was only coined in 2011, so there are still many open questions and active areas of research. For example, we still need to understand the specific microbial taxa or group of microorganisms in the gut responsible for beta-glucuronidase production. We also need to understand and measure the enzyme activity in the estrobolome bacteria. And critically, we need to determine the association of hormonal dynamics between the estrobolome and the brain-ovary axis, if these systems communicate or affect one another. For example, can estrogen activity from the gut affect reproductive function? And this leads us to repro relevance. We know that dysregulation of beta-glucuronidase enzyme activity has been implicated in estrogen-driven disorders like endometriosis and PCOS. But further research is still needed to understand how this happens and to understand the larger connection between the gut and the reproductive system. I really hope you enjoyed learning about the essential role of the estrobolome in maintaining systemic estrogen homeostasis. I hope to see you next time for more reproductive science education. Lots of love from me, your IVF baby.